Spring is here in New Hampshire. It's a balmy 38 degrees, and that means it is time to get going with some of the spring chores that we do every year. First things first, I'm going to be taking inventory of the fences to make sure everything is working so I don't wind up getting phone calls from my neighbors about escaped pigs on their property. I'm going to be taking my fence meter that's going to tell me that the voltage is or is not working. Hopefully it's going to be off because I turned the charger off so I can do a little work on the fence. I got some lineman's pliers and I have a roll of spare aluminum fence wire so that I can splice anything that needs it to put a band-aid on. We'll just make sure that everything is intact and then we'll get everything going. I figured that this would be a good opportunity to do a little impromptu farm tour since we're going to be going around the perimeter and doing a little bit of work. This farm has a variety of terrain on it. That can be challenging. It can also be handy. It can be beneficial. As you see down there towards the road, I have a decent amount of pasture. We'll be walking around in there a little bit and checking on the fences. The barn is in the middle, and then we have up the hill, we have woods, and those woods go all the way up into here. And so my big project for the spring is going to be to move the pigs from this area here in the barn where they currently have been residing for the winter. I want to move them up the hill and get them into the woods. So the woods have not really been disturbed for quite a long time, and I need to get the fences set up in there so that the pigs can do their work. It's going to be good foraging for them, certainly. It's also going to be an opportunity to get them off of the ground that I would like to plant while it is soft and muddy. And then this way, once everything is starting to grow down in the pasture section, we'll have a better opportunity to get that established. Then once everything is sprouted and growing in the pasture, we can run them down the hill out of the woods and get them grazing. This farm used to be a cow farm, a dairy and beef. Of course, we don't have cows here currently, but there is a barbed wire perimeter fence, and we'll encounter that at some point here. But for the most part, I just put electric on the inside of that. The pigs, honestly, they don't really challenge the electric fence. From the time they're little, they get trained pretty well to the electric. So walking the perimeter, I have a fence post that broke and is all a little bit tangled up, so I need to replace that. I'm going to go grab another electric fence post and step-in post and put that there and get that set up. A little orchard growing here, and this is going to look more like an orchard once the leaves are on it, but I have this staked out with some electric fence wire just to make sure that the pigs don't disturb any of this. Now we got pears, apples, plums, peaches, a lot of crab apples, got some mulberries in there too. Nothing really bearing a lot of fruit at this point, but we're hopefully in a few years we should have a little bit going on. Of course, after the snows each winter, they got sagging and dragging with the snow sliding past them and over them and ice hanging off of them. So there's some work that has to be done. But ideally, I try to move the pigs in the direction away from the fences that need the most work so that I'm able to pick my battles one at a time. And I got some hog panels laid out here. I'm building a farrowing area here down in the pasture. Got the gate posts set up, and then we got to put in T-posts and finish up the hog panels. I got halfway into it, as you can probably tell, and then the first snows hit because I was working on it in the fall, and the weather just crept up on me, and thought I was going to have more time because last year it was pretty mild all the way into December, and it was middle of November, everything was just frozen solid, and then snow and ice, and it's like, I guess we'll catch it next year. And that's one of the projects that we got to work on. And then we'll get all this planted and or replanted. I had this area up here, I had a bunch of radishes and turnips. Pigs really enjoyed it, and you can see they did a lot of good work on the soil up here. Now, one of the things that I suspect this camera is not able to accurately demonstrate is what this is like in terms of trying to access this with a tractor. That's definitely one of the big challenges being out here, is that there's not a lot of access, and the access that we do have in this area, it's kind of limited because everything is so hilly. And I have a little tractor, a little Kubota L2501, and that kind of makes it difficult to ride around up here. And then of course up into the woods there's just huge rocks, and so you can't really do a ton there. But so you have to work with what the terrain gives you, and that's been what I do. Oh, here's something interesting. There is a frog that encountered the electric fence last year. Fence is pretty hot, usually between 5 and 8,000 volts or so. So we try to keep it pretty warm. That's a sight for sore eyes. Little bit of sun. It is welcome at this time of year. And these pigs here that are feasting on that bale of haylage in there, these guys are a little too big for the weaning pen. That's where they wound up last fall. And it was a easier place to keep them through the winter, and they were little. So they are much too big for that area, and they have overstayed their welcome in there. So what I'm working on right now is getting the fence set up out here so that we can get them moved out into this little strip where they'll have at least a little more area to roam around, and it's going to be a little cleaner. And this will start greening up hopefully soon. These are basically sacrifice areas that are here just adjoining the barn, because in the wintertime, when plants are starting to sprout and everything is pretty soft in terms of the dirt, you wind up having areas where you got to put the pigs somewhere, and they're gonna stomp everything down. And so you have to let them tear it up, and then you replant it after you can move them out of there. And that's the idea. We'll try to get them up. There's my boar, Pignacious. He's a big boy. He's probably about 700 pounds or so. Purebred Tamworth. But yeah, we're gonna move everybody up into the woods back there, where they're gonna have a lot of nice fresh area to hang out, to play, explore. I am 99% sure that this fence is off, but having learned the hard way a few times, I want to make that 100% sure before I start handling anything. And that is good to go. This fence charger is a Cyclops, and I've bought the Tractor Supply fence chargers, and they have their place, but I can tell you that the money that I spent on the Cyclops fence charger, which this one is like it's like a 12, it's a 12 joule fence charger. And I can tell you that the money that I spent on that, it was pricey. It was somewhere around 700 bucks, I think, which I know a lot of the cheaper ones, let's say, they're a little bit more affordable. But when you buy a bunch of them because they're not hot enough, you wind up actually saving money by getting a more expensive and hotter fence charger. I'm always having to add stuff, reroute things. And a lot of times, especially on a hill, what the pigs will do is they'll come down the hill, and they'll just, I'm not sure that they do this on purpose, but this is something that they do, and they can be passive aggressive pricks. What they'll do is they'll root up either a big rock like this one here that I just kicked out of the way of the wire, and they'll flop a big clod of dirt over the wire, and they'll ground it right out. And I want to have a fence charger that is going to keep the heat on and not be disaffected. So I have 10 acres here, and I have 8 of it that is encircled. And ultimately my plan right now, I'm using, this is aluminum, but my plan is ultimately to get steel on the outside, and then use stainless steel connectors and put aluminum as the cutoffs. That way the permanent fence is going to be the steel, which is supposed to be stronger. And under most circumstances, usually one wire is sufficient. I've never really needed 2, but that's just a habit that I've gotten in, is putting 2. So that's what I have here. And this will get this strip set up so that I can get those feeders out of the immediate barnyard and give them some new area to explore. Okay, so now we got a couple of areas up the hill here that are We got some breaks in the wire, and I want to get those fixed. Pignacious is doing his patrol of the area. He's a good boy. He's a big boy, but he's generally pretty good. I can usually count on him to have a pretty decent attitude, which is saying a lot for a boar. I think that spending a lot of time with your animals is important. Oh, here's exactly what I was talking about, what they'll do. See, they'll bury the wire, they'll put a rock on it, right? And that is not great for the conduction of electricity. And then they keep that going up the hill. And what you have is you wind up with the wire getting snapped off. And so we got to fix that. I added that fence post in right there, that little step in post. You just drop the wires into the little notches there, and you kind of move those around. They can add some tension into the system. Now you can see these electric wires are reasonably tensioned. They're not sagging. That's something that always gives me a little bit of confidence at this time of the year. I want to see nice tight lines, and there's certainly better ways of making connections on fencing wire than this. I'll be the first to acknowledge, but in a pinch, that's one of the main reasons why I use the aluminum, because it's real easy to work with and you don't need a lot of stuff. You can just get the junk off of the lines and pull it tight, twist it around, and you'd be back in business. And so we got the big pigs up here, kind of between here and there. That's going to be for all the piglets that are in the garden area. That's what we call that, the weaning pen. And that will be where the little weaners that are in the barn, once they wean off their mamas, they're going to get put over the wall in the barn, and they're going to have access to that little pen there. And that's where they're going to learn about electric fencing. And that's where, when folks come to pick up their piglets, that's where they're going to be. And the big pigs that are in there now, they're going to be out here doing pig stuff. And that's the main idea, is we want pigs to have the opportunity to do pig stuff as much of the time as possible, because it's good for them and it's good for the land. And you'll see once things get a little bit greener, once the sun comes out for a few days, we get some warmth, everything is gonna start getting green real quick. Everything is muddy, the drainage happens slowly. And this year particularly, it's just been a lot of precipitation. And so everybody's just been living in the mud, and they got a couple of dryish spots where they can nest in there, the big guys, but it's still not great. And looking forward to having everybody out of the barn. This is nice. This area, you're not constantly hitting rocks. You go up the hillside there, it's like you're poking around everywhere trying to find a spot where the post will actually go in. And these step-in posts, I would like to find a better solution. I've tried some of the rebar posts, and they're a little bit better in terms of the longevity, although they sometimes get bent, and when they get bent, you can't straighten them out, or at least I haven't found a good way to straighten them out. Maybe you guys know something about that I don't. But take it section by section and get everything, make sure everything is connected, that it's tight, that there's nothing laying on the wires, and then we'll go into the barn here, switch the power on, and we'll put the voltmeter on it and see what our numbers are looking like. So this is going to be their sleeping area. This is concrete here, and I did the best I could to clean it out. It's definitely not up to the, come on guys. This is why I hate chickens. Go somewhere else. Do your filthy business somewhere else. I got it pretty good scraped out, and we're going to throw some hay in here, maybe some wood chips, and then they will have access to, and they got a nice long strip that goes all the way over to that other fence across the way there, which is pretty good area that they can explore until we're ready to move them up the hill further and get them into the woods, while we get the rest of the pasture down below planted and ready for them to graze on in the late spring, early summer. Hopefully that should all be established and will be ready to go. So keep in mind, I am not an expert farmer by any stretch of the imagination. Ooh, what do we have here? So this was an accident. Mama had her babies before I could move her, and now trying to move her is, I'm afraid it'll do more harm than good. So she's doing a good job, and we got Mama over here, and we got Daddy, but not the baby's daddy. We got a another baby daddy. He's laying in here. That's Charlie. And everybody's getting along pretty well. So I'm going to just let them be rather than try to upset the apple cart. And then we'll get in here and feed in a little bit. Let's turn the power. Chickens. Okay, let's turn the power on. And we're running. Okay, power is on. And let's take a look and see how the fence is doing. We connect the ground, just put the little probe in the dirt, and then we touch it to the fence and see what happens. Turns on, there's power, and 6.5 times 1,000, that tells us how many volts approximately are going through here. So we got 6,600 volts, give or take, and both of these wires are live. That's a pretty substantial jolt. Doing chores videos is not one that I am accustomed to shooting. I'm used to being in the meat locker, the old former butcher shop across the yard. If this is something that you'd like to see more of, subscribe, let me know. Whatever it is that you're thinking about doing with farming, get involved, even if it's just starting something with your friends. You don't necessarily have to be the one getting zapped by an electric fence or chasing down stray pigs in order to be farming. There's a lot of farming that you can do on a smaller scale just by helping someone out locally, getting your feet wet and figuring out how and where is the best place for you to start. So we'll see you guys on the next video.